All right, we're back.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Friday.
It is Friday. So we were talking about soul contracts a little bit. I forget exactly what your question was that we were talking about that got us to that. But I did want to talk about how sometimes, our karmic lessons put us into positions where we're learning lessons that we don't quite understand. Um, and this is from my understanding, obviously. But so, for instance, if you were in a lifetime with another person, and in that lifetime, that person stole from you, in the next lifetime, you would maybe set it up so that you stole from them to see what that other side, you get to both sides of that duality to understand the perception of being stolen from by that person and then the perception of stealing from that person. And this can go to, you know, lovers cheating on each other or somebody killing somebody else or 100 different different things that you might want to experience. And
Usually where it
so
hurts the most.
yeah, well, I mean, it's the lesson that, and I would say, as we were talking about before too, the intensity kind of based, I think, on how you were, you're presented lessons through your life, and do you learn it the easy way, so to speak, or do you let it build up and you're not learning and the same things keep happening, and then by the time you're, it's severe that you have to pay attention. you know
Betraying yourself.
yeah, yeah,
Realizing how you're betraying yourself. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and it's hard, I think, and that's why I love the movie analogy that Ariah gave me, of just imagining Earth as a movie and we're all actors, playing a part in this movie. And you don't get mad at the actor for playing his part in the movie. You're not gonna well, maybe Alec Baldwin, but he's
What about him?
well, he just killed that lady because he didn't check his weapon properly. But I guess you didn't hear about that up there.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's a different topic, but it's like,
Yeah.
was it his responsibility? I mean, he's just an actor. I don't know.
Yeah, if you touch a weapon, you should always know what condition it's in. And that's like gun safety 101. So if you touch a gun, you should know that.
Doesn't matter that he's just an actor. There should be a cast that
Well, he
makes.
should act like he knows what he's doing then.
Yeah. Wow. Well, when did it happen? When did it?
A couple months ago. I know it's not funny, but it is. The irony of it, I guess, is funny. Him being such a gun control advocate and then killing more people than half the people in the world that own
That's the
guns.
paradox. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
So
blew my mind.
yeah. Sorry, that
But
was a little
anyway,
off
so
topic. But yeah, I was I forget the point I was making, but I guess, that might have been a soul contract there too. He maybe, she killed him in a past life and now they gotta return the favor and see what the other experience is. So who knows? But having that, oh, the actor in the movie, that's what I was getting at.
I like that word favor. You use the
Favor.
word favor, return the favor.
Oh.
It's a good way. No, because it's really beautiful way to look at it
Yeah.
instead of karma,
Yeah.
because that kind of evokes some sort of, negative connotation, but it's not. And
Yeah. And I think
we're
so
learning to
many
understand.
times people think of karma as like this debt to society or something in a way. And really what it is, from my understanding, is like I just said, you and I, for instance, set up a contract to, you're going to do the X in this life and I'm going to do Y. And then in the next life, it's going to flip so that we can experience from both sides of that and see what both, and when you think of Earth as that school, that, the playground, the evolutionary playground where people come to, understand and evolve and grow through these lessons, if you're loading up a video game, you want to see all sides of it. You don't care if you die or how you die or whatever happens. You're playing a video game, and if you can see it from that perspective, then it's a little bit different. When you start to look at like karma and different things, it's more about, hey, you want to check this out in this life, all right, next life I'll be on the other end of that, and then we'll see what it's like from both angles, and then we'll flip around these roles until through infinity, I guess.
And that's why I like, um yesterday I was actually reading a blog from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I would love to send it to you because they have new
I've read
research
some of his
about
stuff
the.
before.
Hmm?
I've read some of his stuff before. I like it.
Maybe you've read about the new research that they understand how this virus is infecting us or not.
The one of
There's a
the
reason
mind, you
for
mean?
it. Hmm?
The mind virus.
Mind virus.
I'm joking. Everybody
Yeah,
believing
okay.
in
I
the
wasn't sure, but
propaganda
yes,
is the mind
sure.
virus.
Yes, and it's that, and then also teal swan. I mean, there are probably other people too, but they're more in the spiritual community, as they're always talking about. They're these dreamers, right? Where you just like live on some kind of cloud and you have nothing to do with this life, but it's actually what we came here to do. Teal swan talks about it, to get messy.
Yeah.
That's what makes us, or dives us, like when you dive into this, commit yourself to this life, it gets messy no matter how much you are trying to live pure life, right? Without all of these karma or karmic oh, let's call it relationships or exchanges. So yeah, when you're talking about you give me and then I give you, just to experience it, that's all about it. And then
And then what?
what? So what is the purpose of it?
To
To
learn.
expand for sure on
To
our
experience.
experience.
So I heard a great analogy the other day, and I hope I don't screw it up, so I'll do my best. It's the Brownie analogy. I don't know if you've ever heard it. So if you were God, the creator, and you had you know everything, everything's possible, right? You have your unlimited ability. So what would be the next best thing to do? To create a place where you do have limitations and you can die and you have these, you know, where you forget and you don't know that you know everything and can do everything. So for the brownie analogy, you can read a cookbook and you can know all the ingredients. You could look at all the ingredients that go into a brownie. But until you crack the egg open and get a little batter on your, shirt and go through all these different experiences and bake the brownie, and then you taste the brownie, that's how you experience what a brownie is, right? So that analogy, Earth, is taking away the creator's knowledge, our knowledge of what we truly are, and putting us into this situation where we have to bake the brownie and get the batter out of our hair and crack the egg and pick it up off the floor and do these different processes and then taste the brownie and see what it actually is, as well as learning about it and reading about it. So there's all these different visceral aspects that create those lessons that are more, I guess, attainable. If you can, like I said, you can read about what love is, but until you experience what love is, it's two totally different things, right? And so that's what the creator created this school for, is to experience all these things viscerally, because if you're everything at once, you're nothing at once, right? So it had to separate itself and create this illusion of separation in order to experience these things and create these experiences and, you know, to learn these lessons essentially.
Mhm.
So it just goes on and on and on. And the cool part about it too is, you know, I may make brownies a little different than the way you make brownies. And so you're learning not just what a brownie tastes like, but now it's my own little flavor of brownie, right? So, everybody experiences love in their own way, and everybody experiences hate in their own ways. And, all these different things have these little nuances and variations to the way everybody experiences it and goes through and responds to it, and have these different changes in life and, the evolution of the planet through, climate change and whatever else happens, all these different things. And how do we respond? How do we adapt? How does, how does this environment change the way somebody loves somebody compared to this environment? How does this environment change the way that these people eat food? And, all these different things and all the different, experiences that would be involved in that. It's infinite, and it's pretty amazing when you think about it.
So when you are experiencing parallel lives, do you know something about it?
So, from what I understand, which is about that much, um, I think it's sort of one of those things where right there you just chose to pick up your glass and take a drink. Well, now
Mhm.
life just fractaled into two different parallel timelines where you did take a drink and you didn't take a drink, and then that decision and how, that I'm using that as an example, and obviously I'm sure I would think that it's bigger decisions than that, but maybe it is as small as I did or didn't take a drink, or, and how those, different lives continue to parallel across each other, and sort of see the opposite of all the decisions that you made. and then it kind of goes infinitely if you think about all the, but that's about as far as I understand it, and I hope I'm understanding it as well as I think I do.
I always thought that parallel lives are actually that your soul is living in some kind of other form at the same time simultaneously with this one.
Yeah, it's just from what I understand, it's experiencing all the different possibilities of the decisions that you made in this lifetime, essentially. And then you'll make decisions in that lifetime that fractals. So it's all just fractals of your soul going in all these different directions and all these infinite different possible timelines based on all these different decisions and things that you made. So it's very
So difficult to grasp right now, but I understood it better when when you were explaining it. I don't.
well, I don't know. I hope I'm explaining it somewhat correctly because I don't,
You are, you are. It's just very difficult to grasp.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is like, if you really think about, the source, creator, God, whatever you want to call it, as one, and then everything is just a fractal of a fractal of a fractal of a fractal of a fractal that goes infinitely, in all directions. And then that's basically, all the different soul fragments, and how there's all these different, we're all one, but we're all individual at the same time, experiencing it individually, or at least that illusion of it. So it's,
Now
which to
maybe
me
that's
validates that if we are experiencing it, it makes it real to some degree, right? I know we are all one, but we're also all separated at the same time. So it's kind of both. And it's that paradox of, we are both, yes. So because we did create the illusion of separation on purpose to experience it. And if we didn't believe that we were separated, then we wouldn't experience it in the way that we, do.
so the soul fragmentation comes handy to explain too.
Yeah. And that actually kind of leads right into the rabbit hole that you were curious about, that I was
So
learning about.
curious.
Yeah. So, because that goes into the mind fractaling and fragmenting in the soul, I guess the same idea. So MK Ultra is the project, I guess the overall arcing project, where their idea was to break the mind down and compartmentalize it, and basically give you all these different personalities and fractal your soul. And I believe they said that the max number was like 2000, I want to say 2,197 or something like that, different personalities that they could program into people through this project. Like that's the max, and a lot of people died through this process too. Like there was estimated like 500,000 kids or more were in this project throughout the world and stuff. But the specific one that I'm
I
talking about is the
mean, they
Montauk
physically
Project.
died,
What's that?
not their souls, but their physical bodies.
Oh yeah. Their physical body, just the trauma and torture that they were kind of put through doing these things. So from what I understand, there's obviously different ways, I think, to the way that they split these souls and compartmentalize the way they call it, is they figured it out in like the concentration camps that and the gulags, I believe, maybe more the concentration camps in the Nazi Germany. But they would put that's what they would put Soviet soldiers in the concentration camps. And they would put them in extreme cold and then extreme hot, and then they would starve them and then overfeed them, and just all the extremes that you could have, and then just keep going back and forth. And I guess it makes the mind just kind of split and fractal. And they
Because of
would
the
take
trauma.
yeah. And then they would use those different souls so you could have triggers, right? That now you activated the assassin soul, right? Have you ever seen the movie Naked Gun, where like they have the man, well, there's the Manchurian Candidate. That's another movie where they basically program people to be assassins or whatever, but they don't realize it until there's a certain trigger that triggers, and it's real stuff. And that's where like the all these school shootings, all that stuff, that's where these, and I'm sure they're sprinkled in some real psychopath kids or whatever every once in a while, but more often than not, it's these kids that have been programmed to do these things. That's why they have this glazed over look on their face every time, like they have no idea what's going on, because they're literally just, they have no idea what's going on. And like they erase their memories. But a lot of these kids, I shouldn't say a lot, a handful of these kids survived, and through different therapies and stuff were able to start regaining their memories of what happened in these places to them and these experiments, and how they were doing like interdimensional travel and time travel and different things. And like the one guy I was watching claims that they figured out how, he doesn't know how, whether they were in a different time paradox or what they did, but they would kidnap kids at like 3 a.m. and they would be back by like 3 or 4 a.m. And but in that 4 minutes they were gone for like 4 months in this other time paradox, or however they did
Mhm.
it. So parents had no idea that it was even happening to their kids. The kids didn't even know because they were having their memories wiped and all these different things. And it's just this insane um thing that was going on, and I'm sure it still goes on to some degree somewhere. But this specifically was called the Montauk Project, and it had took place up in Long Island, New York. And that's actually what there's a show on Netflix called Stranger Things, and that's what it's loosely based on, is these experiments that were going on and how they were, you know, I don't know what's all true, and I'm not going to quote any of the things that they said happened, but if you're curious, or anybody else watching, definitely go do some research on the Montauk Project. It's very interesting. MK Ultra, it's all the same idea, but it's all mind control. It's about, like I said, fractaling the brain or the soul into different compartments, and essentially giving them different personalities and training them in different ways and all these different things. And I know it goes way beyond that. There was way more stuff going on that they were using these kids for too. So I mean, the scope is probably very large. And I know they were trying to get kids to like be able to stop the hearts of animals and things like that. Like that was part of it. And there was a lot of different aspects of it. So, but yeah, it's a crazy rabbit hole that I was going down the other day that just really got me interested in, more or less my interest, is also what were those kids able to do, and what could I do because of what they could do, the telekinesis and moving things with their minds, or the telepathy, or being able to interdimensional travel or astral travel, whatever they were doing, these different things. And I know there was a lot of like electromagnetic devices that were used to like amplify these things. So I'm sure that the building, and I'm sure even the location of the building, as far as like the electromagnetic resonance in the area that they're at, I'm sure played a part in it as well. So there's a lot of things that go into, a lot of this stuff, I'm sure. But
So,
I'm curious about like that stuff. Sorry.
so just to go back, who was doing these experiments?
I guess depending on your level of understanding, it would be at the very top, probably the reptilian, whoever those, or the darkness, whatever you want to call them. But the different governments around the world, it wasn't just the CIA or any, the Russians were doing it in different, the Montauk Project specifically was the CIA, I believe, but I'm sure other agencies and everything were involved too. But that was the American version. But I had heard that there was also like a naval base right there on the island, and they would have Soviet and like Nazi um, submarines come in. So, who knows? When you really go through all this stuff, you find out that there's the illusion of all these countries being separated, and fighting each other. And then there's people who all control the world that are from all these different countries and just orchestrating, a huge charade in the end.
But the kids, they were used. What?
Yeah.
Why those kids?
Well, they said some of the kids, survivors or whatever, said that some of the kids were selected, they think, based on their DNA and what was, certain things that were activated in their DNA. So they had certain abilities. And then they said by the end of it, they were just kind of grabbing everybody because they were going through kids so quickly and killing them, and that they just needed kids. And I tend to believe that, all of these things are connected. The MK Ultra, the child trafficking, this adrenochrome, all these different, satanic sacrifices, all the stuff that goes on, it's all connected in one way or another. So all these kids, whether they didn't make it because of what was happening in the experimentations, or because after they were done with them, they sacrificed them and drank their blood, or whatever they do in those, rituals. I don't know, but I just know that the one guy said that there's estimated like up to 600,000 kids that went missing because of these projects. And that's estimated, so who knows? But you see all the, child trafficking and all these different things, and it's so interesting how, I was even saying to my wife when we were watching these things the other day, and I'm like, how hard would it be to just frame even one of these kids that escaped or something, right? So all these kids go missing, and on the news it's going to be, oh, there's a predator out there, there's some, child molester or some child, whatever. And then all of a sudden they snatch somebody up and they're like, yep, this is the guy, and he has some dazed look on his face and has no idea what's going on, or just looks like a psycho or whatever. And it's like, it could have been one of these victims, and they just put the blame on him to totally throw smoke away from their whole project, and
Guess what? Probably that's what happened.
I know, and that's what's scary and kind of just disgusting about the whole thing, and the control and how we've just been deceived with everything for so long.
And it's so hurtful to know that so many American prisoners are just so innocent.
Yeah, I know, and that's one of the hugest irony things that I think people don't realize, that, America, the freest country on the planet, has the highest prison population on the planet. Not just per capita, like overall, more than China, more than anybody else, like more prisoners than any other country on the planet. And that's just kind of disgusting, especially when you think, I think we talked about before, like it should be violent criminals and that's it. I don't see the whole, I see it as slave labor, and they just changed the name of it. And that's really what it is. And if you look into, what's produced in prisons, license plates, denim, and other things, there's a lot of commodities that are, there's just slave labor that they're using.
Yeah. So do you consider yourself lucky?
In what way?
That you were not one of those?
No, because I think, as much as people may not want to look at the world this way or admit it, we choose what we come here to do. So if I came here to learn that lesson, then that's what I came here to do. If I came here to learn these lessons, then that's what I came here to do. So I can't say that I'm lucky in one way or the other. I think that we choose the life that we want to incarnate and have to a lot of degree. And, a lot of people don't want to take that responsibility or have that understanding.
It's hard to understand for sure, because, if you are just kind of like a, you know, average person or below average person trying to make it, and then I don't know, you steal something, and then they're gonna just like take this as an advantage to just, I don't know, this new word I created just now, psychotize you and put you into prison as like this biggest criminal
Yeah.
for this labor, right? It's
Right.
not fair. But I know, even from past lives of my family, there were atrocious acts against them, committed against them. So yeah.
And you got to think of it this way too. Like I said before, with these soul contracts, some of these prisoners were probably people who kept other people as prisoners in a lifetime. So maybe they're
Could be.
experiencing the other side of it. So we sometimes get so caught up in the human, this is right or this is wrong, or sometimes we have to understand that people came here to experience certain things, and we may not understand it from our human, perspective of that doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody want cancer? Why would anybody want child cancer? And it's when you have that zoomed out view of the creator trying to understand all different aspects of creation, it makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you want to understand what it's like to lose a child from cancer? Of course you would want that experience. I mean, it sounds crazy as a human, but as a God, as the creator of everything, that sounds pretty understandable to me.
Nothing
So,
cruel.
huh?
It's not cruel.
Right. It's just you want to know what that's like. And why wouldn't you? And it's the same thing, the video game analogy to me is the best one, because there's no attachment to that character, right? If it dies, you just reload and you go play again. And that's how really what Earth is. You die and you reload as a new character and you go try again. So I
Yeah, it
think if we
is a
could have
lot
that
that
understanding.
it's all about like contributing to the new consciousness that you're trying to gain. Well, you're supposed to, because like these new kids that are being born any time, but for the past like from 1980s, right? um, parents that are conceiving these kids, they don't always have the highest vibrations for them to be born. So a lot of times the mothers lose them because she just can't handle that type of frequency.
Yeah, I've
And
heard of
a lot
that.
of times their miscarriages like in 7, 8 months and so on, right?
Yeah.
So it's very cruel from the human perspective, but it makes a lot of sense knowing that it's not because you wouldn't be, capable of taking care of this kid, but it's just like I'm not sure what it is, but they were explaining that the soul is being pulled away from the body, so the body dies, right? Then it's like the miscarriage, right? But it's can you tell this to the parents that are losing their
Well,
you
that's
know
the other
baby?
thing that we have to understand though, too. And this is a message that I got directly, is that sometimes higher dimensional beings incarnate specifically to die as kids to teach you a lesson. And so there was nothing you could do. There was nothing that was planned from the beginning, that that's what's going to happen. And they did it specifically to teach you a lesson. And so when you can wrap your mind around that and have that type of understanding, then it really changes things. It wasn't some innocent soul that came here and was, taken away like a lot of people like to look at it. It was some soul that came here to teach you something, and they did a great deal of sacrifice to do that for you. So be thankful. And I know
Hmm.
that's like, I'm sure so many people are having a hard time digesting that, but that's really how it has to, you really have to be able to take that zoomed out perspective of things.
I have a hard time digesting my own life.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, especially depending on where, level of evolution you're at and what understanding you have of what is happening here. And, so many people have this love light, everything has to be flowers and roses and whatever this, and it's not that. It's, life is good and bad depending on, it's all your level of perception, or it just is. And that's really what it is it just is. And we're here
Yeah.
to experience all that is.
So chances are, if you are feeling pain, there's a resistance to achieving some kind of clarity over things. And if you feel pain, go different direction.
Yeah.
Simple as
uh,
that.
Yeah, and I mean, it really
Strong,
is,
strong,
but it's
sorry, consciousness can do it. Why did I lose this word? I mean, it's like a keyword today, but yeah, not today, these days. And I still lose it. Um, yeah, it takes very strong mind for sure.
yeah. Well, I just think it takes a different perspective, because so many of us see this right here, what our two eyes look forward and see, and that's it. We can't have that ability to zoom out and have like an atmospheric perspective, or zoom out further than that and look at the galaxy, or zoom out further than that and see the whole universe, right? Not many people can do that.
No, because I mean, why not? Why do you think it is not that possible? If you have such a
Well,
good friend as I do, meaning
because of the
you,
awareness.
that you help me realize things. I don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
really
no.
caught up. I know that because I do. That's what I do every day so long. Take a look at this one thing from different perspectives. It takes courage for sure.
Yeah.
If
Well, and so many people aren't ready to see what they see. And that's a lot of it too. They don't want to look at themselves in a negative light,
they
or
don't.
say my behavior may not be the best. Or when you can zoom out and zoom out and zoom out and keep zooming out, and, maybe it doesn't matter what your behavior is. Maybe who cares? Because nobody gets out of here alive. Maybe we're here to experience what it's like to be an asshole. I don't know. Everybody's got their own deal. So,
I'm sure we all are assholes. We all are victims.
well, it's all a matter of perspective, right? It just depends on, because like
But
I said to you before, people who don't like hearing the blunt truth, you can come off as an asshole. And I know I do a lot, and I'm okay with it because
you have
I
your
know,
truth, yeah.
well, and I know that I'm not
Not
doing it to be an asshole. I'm doing it
right.
because I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you. If you want to hear the truth, I'll tell you. If not, don't ask me. So I'm not going to go out of my way to, say, hey, you should do that. If you're only going to hear the truth if you ask, or if we're having a conversation, I'll ask you if you want to hear it. And I've done it to you before too. So, you know,
Well, for me, it is better to have someone than to do it by myself,
yeah.
right? Because first of all, it takes a skill for sure to develop this kind of ability to do it
Mm,
for yourself. And secondly, doing it together, it's like you, and it's not about not being ready, but for me, it is more about, I just don't know. Can you help me? But then a lot of people are like, don't bother me, right? So I
Yeah.
don't want to bother people, but I I'm not sure if there's a job, I would definitely apply
For what?
for being the kind of person to just like get together, get the circle and get the stuff out. So what happened and why do you think it happened? Something like what we had, this critical friends, right? Yes.
Well, I
Um,
think that's going to
so
start developing more and more as we progress through this ascension process. I think that one thing I think that people are starting to realize is we need to be more on a communal level as far as, government. It needs to just be a community of people working together, towards a common goal, which, is technically socialism, but there's a difference between forced socialism and voluntary socialism. So just keep that in mind.
well, we can't because we are here, like what, 7.5 more billion people. There's no way that we're not going to be living in socialism, right?
Well, there's, like I said, you can live in a force, you can be socialist in a free country. You can't be free in a socialist country. So voluntarily choosing to work together is the answer, not being forced to do what somebody else says. So you and I
So
coming together and creating a community based on our mutual interests and, want for the world is different than some dictator telling us that we are all socialists now, because that's the total difference between the form of government of socialism and, the communal form of working together.
and then
So,
what we want to work on together, right? So again, the socialism, it can be exploitation too,
well,
as
it
what I
it
experienced.
always turns into that. Listen, I'm not advocating. Don't confuse my word, and I'm not talking to you, but whoever's watching, do not confuse my words for wanting any sort of socialism. I'm saying that working together voluntarily is an excellent thing. Working together because you're told to is an awful thing.
No, we
So,
know we are capitalist.
yes, just to be clear on that, I don't want any confusion.
No, it's awesome. That's awesome. So no, for example, working towards discerning our issues. Okay, so for example, you do struggle to go through with money. Why is it like this for you? Why is it like this for me? And we all struggle about the same or on the same subject, but from very different experiences, we got to the point where we got.
Yeah.
And so it's
Well,
great to help one another to understand what it is for you, what it is for me. And there should be no judgment, right? And there isn't, because there's a reason for it. So why would I judge you when I have certainly some issues too, right? Anyway, but that's a
well,
good socialism. If we come together and it's like, I need your help and like you take care of me, right? That's not
yeah.
always good.
Well, and I always say it's all about whether it's voluntary or not. That's all it boils down to. If you
Well,
voluntarily choose to help somebody, then by all means. But when somebody forces you to do something, that's the whole
no,
distinction.
that's never good.
Yeah. So you can help all you want. If you want to help everybody, go for it. But don't force me to, because I'll help who I
You,
choose. And
yeah. And so how does it go for you? Who do you want to help in this? Like
I want to,
how
I
would
want
people
to,
know? Oh, I'm not going to approach him because he probably doesn't want to help me. Like he does help other people, but it's not me.
I want to help those who want to help themselves, and those who are, there's people who talk about problems and there's people who fix problems. If you're coming to me to talk about your problems, I'm not your guy. I don't care. If you're coming for solutions, then let's do it. So, you know, I'm about getting things done. If you just want somebody to cry on, a shoulder to cry on, like I'm not a compassionate person in that way. But if you're looking to solve your issues or understand them from a different perspective, then sure, I'll help you. But like I said, if you're working towards bettering yourself or trying to better the world or some sort of goal like that, or if it's just self-serving because you want to be a victim, no, don't come to me with those problems. I will call you out.
That's how it should be for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
But
all about,
I do
growth and all that.
understand why people would like to be victims for a bit.
Well, yeah. Do I understand why?
Do you understand? I think you do understand a lot of things. Yeah, for sure. You do understand this one as well.
Yeah, it's attention. And it's, I mean, it's a victim society that we've created, and it gives people this, I'm important because I'm a victim. And that's, we've placed importance on victims for whatever reason. And so that's all it is. It's just a societal conditioning. And it's a push towards communism. I mean, if anybody's read the Communist Manifesto or Saul Alinsky or any of these other people who've written about communism and socialism, the playbook is unfolding right before our eyes. It's been going on for a long time. All it takes is for you to take a step back and pay attention to what's going on. They've been doing all of the things that are in the playbook towards the march towards communism and one world government for a long time. And they're not even hiding anymore. They just said it the other day in, what was it, Australia or New Zealand, about the New World Order. Like, they say it all the time in public and people just completely ignore it. So yeah, it's a matter of attention. It's a matter of changing the culture. If you're a victim, then you're not a hero. Heroes win wars. Heroes stand up for themselves. Victims do not. So it's a culture shift. They're trying to create a victim of, or a culture of victims, and then victims don't take responsibility for their actions. Victims don't stand up to the bully. Victims are victims. So that's what they want. They want a controllable, emasculated population. And they're doing a good job.
They are for sure. Maybe that's also what they came to experience. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, and that's you know, and I think that there's a lot of people that came here, I'm sure too, with a certain set of intentions or whatever, and have been completely manipulated because they're, weak-minded, or, and I'm not here to judge, everybody's got their own experiences or whatever reasons why they haven't woken up yet. I think at this point, if you haven't waken up to some degree yet, then you almost have to be like willfully trying not to. But, I don't know, maybe it just
It's
seems like,
jaw-dropping for sure for me too.
yeah, I mean, to some degree, to not just be like, something seems off here. If you're not at least at that point, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Another thing what happened, which is very interesting, and um one of the people that I like, a lot of people this week, right? And one of them was my new friend, supposed to be, because we were talking. So what happened was that we came into the same, I wouldn't call it a course, but let's call it a circle, where women get together for the betterment and for some kind of, I don't know, expansion on the knowledge of being a woman. And so we started talking. She's from here. So it's like, okay, we happen to be in this group that has women from all across the world. And two of us are from the same city. Awesome. So we can meet, right? And it's because, yeah, it's the conscious kind of, friendships that you want to have more than just like be friends for the sake of having friends, right? And I'm like, yeah, we have a lot to share. And actually, we were born like 4 days apart and so on. So I was like, yeah, it could be maybe some cool match or something, right? And so we were supposed to go for coffee. Same thing as with this other person, but this time it was cut off sooner than later. So I was asked, do you want to go to this place or to this place or to this place? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm not a coffee connoisseur. So I don't really care what kind of coffee I'm going to be drinking, or if I'm going to actually be drinking coffee. But, if it matters to you that we go to specifically this place, this fancier or less fancier thing. And for me, it was like, I can't go in anyway because I'm not vaxxed. So I don't have this certificate, or God knows what they need now, right? So for me, I'm not going indoors anyway. And she's like, oh, so you didn't, you're not double vaxxed, you can still get it, so we can go. And I'm like, what? And oh, maybe you just don't have the certificate, so you can just print it. It's online, it's very easy to get, or, and I said, no, and none of it. And she's like, oh, so then we can just wait until everything is over and then we can meet, but we can still chat. And I'm like, I'm not interested in pen pals or some kind of text balls or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it's what a friendship. So I'm not sure what to do in these situations. To be honest, I don't. Because should I just let this person like go? Or should I be just like, okay, I understand. We can still be friends for sure.
I mean, I think that's kind of your individual choice, but I think that,
I know it is, but
well, I know, but what
I'm
I'm
lost
getting
in
at
this,
is
right? It's
if
like,
you're looking at a wavelength frequency, people who are double vaxxed and people who are anti-vax are probably, or I don't know what your thoughts are, anti at least this vax, whatever it is, probably aren't too much on the same wavelength, and that's
that's
about where I
that's
would
my
leave that.
first thought.
But with that being said, I've had kind of those same concerns with people that, since all this stuff started happening with me, that, it'd be totally awkward, meeting with them. And we went out and had dinner the other night with some friends, and it was great. So it's like, maybe we're overthinking things at times too. And sometimes it's, but and I know, I'm not going to interject anything further, but I know how people who have that mindset tend to think. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, for me, it was actually, I said, I don't have any belief that I have to stay away from anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
That's what I
they,
said. It's like super neutral. And it's not like I was trying to be. It's just like I don't feel like staying away from this kind of person, that kind of person, whether it's disabled or vaxxed or it's maniac or it's something. I don't stray away from people, and maybe that's my fault. Why I always get fucked. But anyway, yeah, that's then I was so, oh, it makes so much sense. But Leah, like, you know what? Let's just wait until everything is over. And I'm like, everything is over. What does that mean too? So we were talking about language and being authentic. So that's what my thought was. Okay, so it's not the same frequency. Sure. There's no like 1 second that I should think of yes or no. It's pretty obvious. However, if we're embracing something, and inclusion is very important, especially from the perspective of feminine energy, inclusion of everything and everybody. I'm
who
like, I don't
said
know how to act on this.
who said that's important?
That's what it is about.
What is?
The feminine energy is about inclusion of
Okay.
everything and everybody, right?
For everybody?
Mhm.
Because that seems like, I mean, I get the idea behind it, but I also get like you're not going to vibe with everybody.
You're not, but
I mean, I get like being, hey, you know, everybody's got their own thing and I'm okay with you being you, but that doesn't mean that we're going to hang out and be friends.
yes, true. But that's like the perspective of this inclusion is like, you are not to, because that would be the masculine role that we had, right? So just like kick people out because you don't belong, and the feminine energy is belonging. It's all about belonging, and don't exclude everybody, because I mean, that's being outcast. That's not what we want anymore, right? In this better world. That's
Well, we
all.
can all hang out at the same in the same building, but we don't have to sit at the same table.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
But
would
then
think.
I'm not going to act against you, for example, because you have certain understanding of things. But so
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
it was like, okay, I'm not sure how to explain this for myself, and I didn't really want her to explain it, or him, doesn't matter who that is. But yeah, we talked about the impeccability of our language and being authentic, right? So I'm not sure if you want to get into that, or we can talk about it next time because it's 11.
We can talk about this, wrap it up with this, but yeah, I just as we were talking about a little bit before, I just think that there is so much of our communication that gets convoluted and distorted and misunderstood and misinterpreted, and go on down the list of things. But it's, we are imperfect beings trying to use an imperfect form of communication to communicate. And I think that we need to understand that, and understand that sometimes, it may seem like somebody's, mad at you or yelling at you or something like that, and they're just fired up about a situation, or, they're, and being able to remove yourself from that and kind of, have that third party perspective and understand that, they're not mad at you, they're mad, they're or mad at the situation, or just, in a fired up way to talk about it. Or, and that can go in, multiple different directions also. And but I think that's where, the future of where we're heading with telepathy and things like that, where it's, you understanding my whole thought process, my whole thought form, the whole message that I'm trying to convey to you, with the emotion included and all these other things, that it's, you would understand clearly I'm mad at this situation, I'm yelling because of this and all that, whatever. Well, we wouldn't even have to have the yelling and all that, because it would just be this, thought communication. So it would just clear up so many miscommunications and misinterpretations by people, which in reality is what a lot of conflict is based on. So, and then we were talking about before too, just, the differences in culture and, you know, we were saying how English, English where you are, English where I am, English on the other side of the country, it's all a little bit different, and all words mean a little bit different things. And everybody has their own little dialect with things, and how, like in Asia, I know when I was in Korea, there's certain things that, are considered disrespectful that, are considered natural here. Like, staring in people's eyes is considered, I believe it was there, it might have been somewhere else, I don't know, but, where you stare in someone's eyes when you talk to them, they consider that extremely disrespectful, where here it's considered respectful. So it's like those, misunderstandings and miscommunications would all be alleviated through, this new form of communication. But I think that we can start to alleviate some of that by trying to understand from, as we talked about before, that zoomed out perspective, and being able to detach yourself from that situation and maybe try to understand where they're coming from and kind of see it from a third party perspective.
Well, I never did, right? It's good to ask. I didn't really feel like going there. But anyways, that's the problem then. We need to learn the strategies. I don't think that we have them, because getting back to this case, for example, if you have any, that would be nice to bring up too. But I don't understand that person at all. And asking, why do you think this way? Explain yourself to me. Some people are like, I don't need to explain myself. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't even do it in that sense. I would try to do it in my own sense and understand what I know about them and where they've come from, or just to understand that they are the way they are because of where they have been and where they've come from. And,
Yeah,
sometimes
but
that
it's
can,
different than, let's say, coming inside your house, right? It's like my own private space, and I do require people to have certain, I don't know, or there's some standard that I do expect.
what do you mean by that?
Okay, so going back to this, how did you call it? This synthetic entity. Whatever. So anyway, I'm coming over for dinner, right?
Okay.
And you find out that I didn't comply with the majority of the world. And so you would be like, sorry. And I would understand that. But going out for something so insignificant, like a cup of coffee, you have to wait until something is over. Like, when is it going to be over? I didn't understand that. I will never. So,
But seeing it from her perspective of
I
why does she
am.
think that way?
How? I have no clue.
Well, why do you think she thinks that way?
I have no clue.
Well, it's very simple. Obviously, she watches a lot of TV. There's number one, right? So she's programmed from that sense. She obviously believes that this pandemic is legit. So you have to understand that she believes that there's a big scary virus out there that could kill her at any time. She obviously got 2 injections, right? So she's terrified. She lives in fear. You don't.
And I didn't think so, because none of it was like, pointing to it. I don't know. I mean, so it's easier if you know already that person. And if you
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
really
you don't
know
have to
and you're
know them that
making,
well, but I mean, just I don't even know who this person is, and I can tell those things
me
right away
neither,
just from
right?
those.
So we were trying to get to know each other and so on, right? But
Yeah.
that's the thing. So for my first thought was like, maybe it's because if I can't do these things with you because you're not vaxxed, you don't have the passport, so then I cannot enjoy myself. I
Yes.
don't know. That's what I thought. But I'm like, that's kind of weird, because you can still go to a skiing slope and enjoy yourself on a slope, being outside in nature with someone. You don't have to be just like enjoying yourself only having big dinners inside some kind of
So
restaurants,
now
right?
you're starting to understand the psyop that's been put on us, right? The divide and conquer. Look at how terrified she is of just hanging out with you.
I can't still believe that that's it. Like, is that really it?
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, just look, and that's what I don't know if I was talking to you or somebody else the other day in one of our podcasts, but you can literally, at this point in history, you can you can go look at people and say, okay, they watch TV, they watch this channel, they watch that channel. Like you can just tell, but based on very few actions. If you're wearing a mask in your car by yourself, I guarantee I know that you're watching TV, 100%. And I probably could guess what channel it is because you're just ingesting fear all day long and you think that this is real and you aren't getting any other perspective. You're just believing at face value whatever you're told on TV. And I bet you have 2 shots and probably have the 3rd one scheduled if you haven't already got it.
Yeah.
I can identify those things just based on what channel you watch, or if you watch TV at all.
Yeah, I get it. Like if yeah.
People are programmed. They don't understand it. They don't even realize it. And it's all fear. Everything is fear-based. And they know that because of all of the experiments that they did in the Nazi camps and all these other things. And then they brought over all those scientists who were part of that in Operation Paperclip. And now they're all part of our NASA and all these other things. Werner von Braun, Einstein, and all these other Nazi scientists that were brought over. People need to learn their history and they'll understand that this is
So
all been
why
going on
is
for
it
some
that
time.
I'm not scared of many things, but I probably am scared of other things, like let's say somebody shouting at me, as simple as that. I'm like so scared of things like that, right?
Why?
Well, probably doesn't mean anything to other people, but then they would not go out for coffee. Wow.
But I think you need to ask yourself that more than why are you afraid of somebody shouting at you?
It's just I'm terrified because I was always being shouted at. It's very scary and beaten and so on. So no, it's not comfortable. It's pretty traumatic. That's all.
So it's because it brings up those fears from your past.
Yeah. So if they are scared of this programming, yeah, it's it's huge. It's more valid for sure than my fear.
No, it's the same. It's programming.
It is the same, but in on like yeah.
It's just done in a different way. You were programmed based on things that actually happened to you. They were programmed based on things that they saw on TV. It's just human programming. We all get programmed in different ways. It's just a matter of if we can identify it and be aware of it and change it if we need to. And some people can, and some people live in fear the rest of their lives and never progress. The thing that everybody has to understand is we all die. We're gonna die. No matter what happens, everybody's gonna die. It's just, are you gonna live in that process?
Therefore, I was like, is it more about being comfortable, right? So you don't want things to happen to you because it just doesn't make you feel comfortable. So you don't want to re-experience it.
Okay, but do you have control over somebody shouting at you?
No, it's not about that. It's
No, I'm
more
just
about
using
like,
it as an example
even if
because I'm getting to a point. Do you have control over somebody shouting at you?
no, but so I
So,
dealt with it, right?
so if you face your fear, then it doesn't control you.
And I had faced it, right? So even if somebody does, it still doesn't make me comfortable, but I know how to deal with it, and it doesn't create this whole thing that it did when I was a kid, for example.
So
So now,
maybe once you get to the point that it doesn't bother you, then it'll be completely.
I mean, nobody's comfortable being shouted,
No,
neither
no, and I'm
you.
not saying specific. I'm kind of using this as a generalized, thing where people need to understand where that fear comes from and why they have it, and know that it only controls them because they allow it to. Once they face
It
those
does,
fears, then it doesn't control them
does. And
anymore.
yes, as you are a child, you're trying to survive with those people that are, doing this too. So you can't just like take care of yourself. Now that I can, obviously it was the same thing. For example, if you are a woman, maybe even man, being in marriage, you're being shouted at, and then so you have nowhere to escape. You have to take it. So it's hard to take it, right? But you develop this coping mechanism, and then you dissolve this whole thing, right? So I overcame this whole thing, but it will never be okay for me to be shouted at, for example, and nobody. I don't think so, right? So it's just, yeah, how do you let's say,
Well, having
how do you
parameters and
face
being
it?
afraid of something is two different things too, right? So facing your fears and understanding that it controls you is different than,
Mm,
saying, I don't allow this in my life because this is,
yeah,
something that,
right.
so those are
But
two.
you cannot um you cannot, sorry, what's the word? Predict that somebody may or may not shout at you, right?
Right,
Sometimes.
my point exactly. So you have to control yourself and your reaction to those
Yes,
external
exactly.
stimuli is my point. So you
Yes,
not being
and
afraid of somebody shouting at you, it shouldn't matter if somebody does or doesn't because you can't control it.
yeah,
But the fact that how you react to it is what you can control.
obviously.
That was my
So
point.
going back to this fear of being around people who, I don't know, are not the same, for example, in certain, sorry, how to say it. um I kind of lost it, because so the fear of being around people who are not, let's say, vaccinated, to put it bluntly, why would you be still afraid? Why? I will never get that.
Well, that's probably one question that they've never asked themselves. Why? Why am I still afraid? Because they told me to be afraid. And then they would have to come to the realization that they've been programmed.
Can there be anything else than fear?
Love.
No, I mean, like, why
Everything
would I
boils
not
down to
want?
those two things pretty much. When you boil it down to its deepest, it's
Yes,
either fear or
yes,
love, the reason why you do things.
love, yeah. And then it can be, that's my question, right? It's like, do you love hanging out with people more than you love the fear? Probably not. You love the fear more than you do love
Well,
the
it's not about
joy.
loving the fear, it's being controlled by fear. Fear controls. That's why they use it. That's why they put you
There's
in
a
fear constantly,
payoff,
because they
right?
can control you easier. You don't love it, you don't know the difference. You're controlled. They don't love being controlled, they just don't know any better.
Well, I don't know any better than just love my joys. And one of the joys would be I would never allow something to intimidate me
And
to that
that's why
point
you
where
are
I
where
cannot
you
enjoy
are, and
myself.
that's why she is where she is. Because you understand that. And some
But
people
is it
can't
really?
get past it.
I can't believe it. I can't believe
Why?
that it is,
Why?
no matter how I look at it. I just can't believe that, yeah, the people would be afraid like that.
But okay, take a step back and put yourself in her shoes now. Put yourself in front of CNN for 8 hours a day and them telling you that so many billions of people die every day from the coronavirus, even though it's statistically impossible.
I'm
What do
trying
you
to.
think? Telling you that you are not going to survive. All these fake scientists and doctors coming on all day saying how dangerous it is, how terrified you should be all day long. And you're not even smart enough to realize that this is the greatest propaganda machine in the history of the world.
But
What are you
then,
going to believe? You're going to believe every single thing that those experts, so-called in quotes, tell you to believe.
people do believe that it's going to be over one day, right? They don't believe that
Of
it
course they
will be
do, because
like
they keep thinking, they keep moving the goalpost. As soon as you get 17 more boosters, it'll be over. And then it'll be 18, and then it'll be 47, and then it'll be the rest of your life.
I
Because they're
see.
stupid and they can't look. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be condescending, but they can't look back. Look, this is not the first rodeo with any of this stuff. It is all the same tactics that they've been using with the war on terror, the war on drugs, prohibition, everything else that you can think of. It's the same fear tactics, it's the same manipulation, it's the same masquerading, it's the same propaganda, it's all of the same tactics. And people just aren't able to take a step back and realize what's going on. And that's all it takes is step out, zoom out for a second, do some independent research on some things. It's not that hard to find. All of this stuff is declassified at this point. You can go to CIA.gov and look up half of these projects that I talk about. There's no hiding it. They did happen. They do happen. All they do is change the name of it and say, oh, we don't do that anymore. That's, I mean, it's really not that hard to figure out. But people don't care. They don't want to know. And they're told that conspiracy theorists, which was a coin or a term coined by the CIA in the 60s to discredit anybody who questioned this official narrative of the Kennedy assassination, people don't know that stuff, and they don't care to know. What they know is what they're told, and they know that through school they were rewarded for obeying authority. And so that's what they think life is obeying
Yeah.
authority.
No, it's just like, I can't believe that someone who, you think is just some sort of educated person would.
Educated. What does that mean now?
I understand.
It means indoctrinated.
I understand. It's
I mean, it's sad to say, and you can disagree with me all you want, but go look at what reality is and go look at what they teach you. It's two totally different things.
well, I guess I'm still a lunatic for a lot of people then too, from their perspective.
Absolutely. And understanding that it's half the battle of not being crazy, right?
Anyway, wow, it's I have difficulties these days. That's all.
Well, yeah, it's hard for both sides to see the other side's point of view. That's why it's important to try to be neutral and see both sides, because, and to understand too, there is propaganda that comes from both sides. There is fake spiritual propaganda. There is fake right-wing propaganda. There's fake left-wing propaganda. There is propaganda on every single side of the coin in this whole situation. So we have to understand to use our discernment and, follow the things that resonate with us in our core, not external validations or what we think are necessarily.
So love and fear, and this fear, I understand, came here to eradicate.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, is because we're not here to eradicate the darkness. We're not here to eradicate evil or anything like that. There is no, that's all part of this. That it goes, there is no light without the dark. There's no dark without the light. So you have to have both. So we're not here
Yeah.
to get rid of, we're here to rebalance. That's
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, it's
Is it possible? Because if it's true that it's just from fear, these people are doing what they're doing, whatever they're doing in relationships with us, is it possible to balance it?
yeah, awareness, not being afraid.
How can you?
What are you afraid of? That's what I mean. We all die, right? Every single one of us, no matter what happens,
Oh, but
we're
yeah,
all
so
gonna
it
die.
happened
So what's there to be afraid of? I
maybe
would be more
April.
afraid of being controlled and being a slave to somebody else while I'm alive than I would be of
Oh,
dying.
but okay, so in April or March, right? That was exactly the conversation I had with the person that I was seeing. It was exactly about like, but you would die anyway. And it's like, but I don't want to die now. Literally. And I
So
was
you'd
like,
rather be a
what?
slave and a
No,
prisoner.
because it's science. And I'm the bimbo idiot. Because
Yeah,
I don't understand science.
right. And neither do they, obviously.
But that was exactly another of my conversations.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Such a
Before we go
long
any
time.
further, what is science?
Oh goodness.
It is the observation of things, correct? That's what science is. We observe things and we report the data on what we observe. That's what science is. Anybody who says anything different than that has no idea what they're talking about. Science is the observation of things and reporting the data of those things. So how could the science be settled? How could the science not change? How could the science have all of these things that are completely contradictory to what science is, which is the observation of things? So all of these people who are getting caught up in these, oh, you don't trust the science, you're a science denier. You don't know what science is. Science is the observation of things. And if you're not observing what's going on, then you're not doing your scientific duty and seeing how you're being manipulated.
Well, you know why? Because they believe I'm not a scientist. I am a
And
musician.
that's what they want you
I
to
have
believe. What do you
nothing to
need to
do
be a
with that. All
scientist
I
for?
do is just like trust those people because they're scientists, and
Are you a
that's
linguist? How are you using words right now? How is it possible if you're not educated in being a linguist? How could you possibly form a coherent sentence if you're not a, do you see how that goes? That's the type of thinking. Like everybody put this like overemphasis on education, which they did on purpose, because the more years that they can get to indoctrinate you, you see where most of it happens is in college. So it's, you just have to be able to see the whole bigger picture to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and a lot of times they take the power away from you when you're much younger because you're not there yet.
Exactly. And to a lot of degree, that's true. I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. There are, you know, I don't, it, age shouldn't matter. It's your knowledge that matters. But you can be 18 years old and think that you know everything there is to know about the world. And we've all been there. So there's an understanding of that also, that you can't know certain things until you've experienced. It's that brownie, going back to that, there you can think you know all about brownies because you read about it in school growing up, but you never tasted a brownie or made a brownie. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Therefore, you shouldn't be in the school, but living life.
Exactly. And that's this whole like misconception that we've created and purposefully done, that if you don't have an education in that specific field, that you could not possibly have any idea what that field is about. This over specialization where there's these experts. How could you possibly be an expert on climate change? Explain that to me. Anybody? There's no how. How long do you live on this planet? How long have we observed climate? 150 years, 200 years, recorded data, and we know what billions of years of this earth is supposed to be like. How do we know there's supposed to be ice caps? How do we know that the ice age isn't completely, or we're still in the ice age and it's not completely over yet? How do we know? We don't. Because we have this hubris as humans that think that we know all these things, and half of it is just about control and being able to tax you to death. So when people start to realize that and understand that climate change has happened, we've had at least 7 ice ages previously to this ice age that we know of through science, observation of things throughout time. We know these things. So if we had 7 ice ages before, how did we get out of them? Because it got warmer? Well, how did it do it?
No,
Was
we
it
had
all the
all this
cars
technology
then?
and cars that made this climate warmer. Yes.
Yeah, all those 7 times before, all those cars that
And
were doing it.
recycling and all that. We did that before, That's how
Yeah.
we got out of it.
Or maybe it has more to do with the Earth's tilt and wobble and distance from the sun, that it goes on its different revolutions around the sun. Maybe it goes a little bit further, so it gets a little bit colder. Did you ever think of that? And then it gets a little bit warmer because it get a little closer. It almost makes too
It's
much sense.
again that science that we didn't attend that class, because knowing so much about planet Earth, we would know this. But anyway, it's
But you're not an expert, so no one to believe you anyway.
it's just unimaginable for me to take certain perspectives. That's my conclusion. No matter how much I try, it's difficult.
Yeah, but I think that should be the goal, is to be able to at least see and understand somewhat to some degree.
Maybe see and understand. Maybe it's like embrace it.
Well, I mean, it's for me, like you just said, like I see somebody wearing a mask in their car and I want to just, call them a Looney Tune and all these other things, but then I have to realize, like, the reality of the situation is they're a weak-minded person who was manipulated by their television set. And that's really all there is to it. There's no other way to look at it. So, do I feel bad for them in a way? Do I understand that that's part of the process? Yeah. Do I get that, they came here to learn certain lessons? Yeah. So I can be mad at them, or I can just say, yeah, that's what they're going through and that's what it is. I'm not going to change their mind. I don't want to argue with them. They're probably convinced of what they're convinced of, and that's fine.
So we're going back to my case. I'm pretty selfish this this way. Yeah, I'm just trying to have some more people in my life that would probably support my own self, and I'm not getting it. So it's probably more upsetting. That's all.
Yeah. I think your lesson is learning to be alone for a minute, and then you'll attract
But
those.
I am, because no,
No, being comfortable with being alone. I know you're alone. I'm saying you got to be okay being alone. And then that's when the things will attract, that you got to be who you want to be. Then those things will attract to you. You can't just want them.
it's hard. But yes.
Well, nobody said it was easy. If it
My
was
computer
easy, it
is
wouldn't
freezing.
be like, I mean, if think about that though, if school, Earth is a school, correct? So if the lessons were easy, what would be the point of doing it? If it were, you wouldn't learn anything. And I think, and this is based on my own experiences, and I think that sometimes we think we know something and we think we understand it, and then we're questioning why the things continue to happen, and then more things happen, and then we understand more, and then we really understand it then. And I
That's
think
what it is. Yeah,
it's that
I've
awareness phase first where you're like, yeah, I get it. And then it's like, but have you
you.
tasted the brownie? You know what it
Yeah.
is, but have you tasted it? And I think that's a big part of it. And going through it, and it's, you can dip your toes in the water and say, oh yeah, that's what water feels like, or you can jump in and really feel what it feels like. So maybe you were just dipping your toes in and you had to really, you think but maybe the water is not as bad as it seems.
Um, no, I think I have to be more do you call it? Um, not decisive, but more not even radical, but like something like that in my what's for me, what's not for me.
Discerning.
Yeah, but it's my more on this more based on decisions, right?
Hmm.
So discerning is for me more mental. Decision making is more like a doing things, right? So I think my problem was always that I just was very considerate, right? And I was always trying to understand and like take everything, and then it wasn't serving me because
Are you an
mm,
empath?
probably
It's, so
forced or not, it doesn't matter. But it's like I'm
but
realizing
empaths get
now
taken
in
advantage of a
conversation
lot.
with you.
Just to, so
Yes.
empaths, with your good nature and your, wanting to help everybody and feeling what they feel and all those different things, it makes you a victim and a target. And, especially those who are, how do I say this, on the, everybody's on the ascension path, but some people are the teachers and some people are the followers. The people who are the teachers are definitely going to get more attention from the darkness, if that makes sense. So I would look at it from that perspective.
Yeah. And it always comes from different source,
Hmm. And I
not
think that
just
right
my.
now, all of the people, us who are kind of on this forefront of this thing, and then there's the people who are watching who are on like the same kind of idea, and then there's everybody else, right? And then eventually our goal is everybody who's watching us is somewhere where we are someday, right? And we're all progressing through that, and so that they can help all of these other people who are going to be awakening at some point, hopefully soon. um but I think that that's the way that we got to look at it, is the people who are at that forefront, they're going to be getting, we're here for a reason, and that's why we're finding certain people to talk to and kind of, learn these different lessons, because we're preparing for this next phase when we're all going to be called to action to help people understand what's going on in this mass awakening that's going to, I don't know, I keep hearing very soon, so I don't know.
And I'm just hoping, as you said, you want to help people that want to be helped, right?
Well, yeah,
I
that's
do believe I want to be helped. Otherwise, I wouldn't have you as my critical friend.
well, and that's what I mean is, if you are, and I can tell I can tell when I say things, how people take them, what their reaction is. I can tell if it's going to go the way I'm intending or if they're not going to, get the
What do
message.
you think? I'm not taking it?
Oh, no, you definitely are. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you. No, and
Thank you.
it's not about me being like, hey, you have to listen to everything I say and, accept what I say
I
as fact or
understand.
anything.
I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
But it's about, and you've talked to me enough times. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm asking you questions most of the time, and you're coming to the conclusions yourself. I'm not trying to make you think in any certain type of way. I just make you question and
Yeah.
maybe present a question in a different perspective than you had thought about.
It is easy sometimes. Certain things are very easy for sure. And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do as well, right? With like other people, but sometimes I just don't feel like going there. Like, for example, with this
But it
friend
can
who
be
decided
exhausting.
for me as well, well, let's
Yeah.
just meet after. Like, thank you for making decisions even for me. You made
Yeah.
decisions for both of us.
Yeah.
That's something that I didn't even want to bring up as well, right? It was another thing that crossed my mind, like, excellent. So do you want to, continue and entertain something? No, you don't, right? And I shouldn't. But then from my probably this, I know, and I don't want to be empath, but yes, it's like,
I think being an empath
you
is
didn't
good
really
if
ditch
you
this
can
person right
control.
away after this, I'm not like that. And maybe that's what I need to do. Like, ditch them all. That's it. Right from the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Or maybe, certain people are sent to you for a reason. Maybe ask her why. Because a lot of people don't have any good answers when you ask people why they do things or why. Maybe ask her why and see what she says. And if
Not
she doesn't have
anymore,
a good
but I
answer,
mean, yeah, next time I will if something happens like this. Yeah.
well, and this is for anybody in general. Ask people why they do things. And a lot of people don't like to be questioned. I'm certainly one of them a lot of times. But, especially if you're having a conversation, asking people why things, and they have to, I don't know why do I do that? Why am why do I think that way? Or, and it helps me. It helps when, I may not like it all the time, especially depending on the situation, especially when kids or something, and it's like, go clean your room and you ask why, like there's really no explanation why, so there's definitely time and a place to everything. Um, but yeah, I think that when you ask people why and they have to formulate an answer and back up what they have to say, so many people in today's world can't even do that. They have no reason why. They just, because that's what I was told, because that's what I repeat from the TV. And it's terrible. Or that's what I was told to think in school or whatever it is.
um it all comes down again to me about being impeccable. You're just not authentic to yourself, right? And I'm not saying that I'm 100% authentic with myself. It's normal because we, to a larger or smaller extent, I think, because we all are still learning, basically. And when you're still learning, you can't be authentic 100%. And
Well,
especially if we still don't know about ourselves. Do you know
yeah.
everything about yourself? Probably not, right? I mean, I
Mm,
haven't experienced everything, so I can't know myself that well. But
yeah.
do I fucking work on it first? Sorry for the language. I do, man. I do.
Well, and that's the thing is, there's a quote by Vince Lombardi, old football coach, and he said, we constantly are in the pursuit of perfection, knowing full well that we'll never catch it, but in the process, we'll catch excellence. And I think that's what the goal should be: is we know we're not going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean I can't chase it, you know, and I
I,
can't try to
I
achieve perfection in my
feel like
own mind.
chasing. Do you feel
But
like chasing? Do you feel like you're being exhausted? Sometimes you are exhausted from this chasing.
I mean, I think that's where the balance comes in, because while we're chasing perfection, we also know that there's no such thing as perfection. So
It's not really
what may
perfection,
be
but it's
perfect
like,
to you is not perfect to me, and vice
yeah,
versa. So I think that that is something that we have to keep in mind as well. My idea
it's
of perfection is not the same as yours.
because it will never end. We know this. So there's no perfection, but just deal with what's coming at you, right? That's what I'm
Yeah, and
doing.
I
And
mean, if
a lot
you're
of things
always,
are coming at me. Are
I
many
think
things
being in
coming
a,
at you too? Well, like, certain situations. And
like,
so you have to be dealing with it. Like, for example, you had this channeling about practice, 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 right? So
mhm.
where you targeted about like you're not practicing, so this is why it's happening to you. And there's always something happening to you and for you, right? So I don't really agree with like, oh, everything is for you. No, it's to you until you make it for you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of your perspective. It's happening to me or for me. I think it's either the victim or the hero. That's the perspective.
Yeah,
It's
but
happening to me, you're
say
the victim. It's happening for me, you're the hero.
someone would just like, I don't know, blow out your car, right? It's like, oh, why did it happen? Right? So you would like kind of like, why did it happen? You would point to yourself and then you would be like, oh, because. So it happened for me.
Right.
Right?
But if you
But at
say
first
the
you're like,
universe just hates me,
no,
then
no, 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 no.
then you're the
Um,
victim.
Well, not anymore. I don't know if I ever thought that way though, but
Oh, there's plenty of people who do.
I'm sure.
But that's the difference, I think, is do you look at it as an opportunity to learn and grow, or do you look at it as the world is trying to keep you down? And that's really, are you the
No,
victim or
no,
the hero of
no,
your
yeah.
story?
But it's like a lot of things are happening, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Always something that I'm
And we're
facing.
not perfect. Nobody's ever gonna, react perfectly to every situation. I can talk about how the perfect way to do things. That doesn't mean that I do it in practice all the time or that I'm perfect in the way I do things. I screw up all the time. Like I'm not trying to, stand on this pedestal and act like I'm perfect or anything like that. But I do try to reflect on things. I do try to improve upon myself in areas that I feel are lacking or I have weaknesses or, I do look at those things. And then that's the other part of perfection too, is, you know, my good enough in some areas, is perfect for me because it doesn't matter, to me, it's this level of importance. Like perfect is, well, as long as it works, and then other things that really do matter, perfect is a much higher standard too. So it's very much a sliding scale of, based on importance to you.
It's just a funny thing that came to my mind. It's like the peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? No, you put first the butter and then the jelly. No, it's first, right? So yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's just an example how people can get caught up in small things.
Yeah, and that's a lot of and that's why, probably said it 400 times on this podcast already, but taking that zoomed out view and being able to have that different perspective is so important.
Yeah, 400 videos.
Oh no, 400 times in this podcast. No, no, I wish I had 400 videos. I'm getting like a quarter of the way.
We're getting there.
Yeah,
We're getting there.
yeah.
Goodness. Okay, so yeah, it's been tough for me, but I'm also enjoying it. I do have to say, and you are
Well, and
very.
that's because your
Thank you very
perspective
much.
too is understanding, you can sit there and curse the world for the things that have happened to you, or you can be grateful for those things that have happened to you to teach you the lessons that you've learned from it. And that perspective depends on whether you learned the lesson or not that it was teaching you too. So, always understand that everything you're going through, no matter how tough or, easy it is, it's some sort of lesson that can be had or learned from it. And, you know, one thing that's always been, not always, but more recently been apparent is every time I look back on life's tragedies, and I'll give you a good example. It's hilarious to look back on now, but I mean, you can imagine the day. So my wife and I were on our way out to go to the grocery store. And right when we hit the exit to go to where the grocery store was, my engine blew up in my car. And so we get it up to the the parking lot or whatever where the grocery store was, and we call her brother, who's a mechanic, and we're like, hey, can you go down to our house and grab our other car and bring it out to us so we can finish our grocery shopping and whatever, and we'll get our car towed. So he goes and grabs the car. The exact same spot on the exit, my wife's engine piston blows out of the side of the motor. So we lost two cars, both of our cars, within 2 hours of each other. And on top of that, within, I don't know how many weeks it was or whatever, we lost our washing machine, and there was something else that went out. And it was just like, are you kidding me right now? And it was just one thing after another after another. And but now when you look back, and it's funny, and you're like, it seemed like the end of the world at the time. How are we going to get to work? How are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to get, both the cars still have money owed on them, all these different things. And now everything's fine. And you look back on it and you laugh. And it's like, how many times have you been in that moment in your life where everything's falling apart? Everything is tragic. Everything is horrible. The world's ending, only to a year later to look back and laugh and say everything worked out fine. So I think that's the lesson is, let's stop thinking the world's ending when we have these things happen, and just be able to maybe take a step back and say, okay, what is the lesson to be had here? Why am
Absolutely.
I going through this? And even if you can't understand it at the time, losing your mind over it and becoming, and having all these emotions and worry and stress and everything else that comes with those type of situations, when you're looking back on that year later, all those emotions were for naught, right? It was a waste. What did it accomplish?
Um, yes or no? Because for me, as an emotional person, more expressive emotional person, because there are people who we're all emotional, but
I
differently.
meant the worry and the stress more than being emotional.
It
Like
helped me.
if you're stressing out and worrying, that those
Yeah, but
are,
it helped me. It helped me for example, what I how much I stressed, let's say 4 years ago, prepared me for how less I stress about things today,
Well, that's
right?
my
So
point.
yeah.
That's my whole point is you learned that lesson then. Now you don't have to stress because you understand, regardless if you would have stressed or not, you'd probably be in the same spot you are now. That's kind of the realization that I think, we can stress over things and say, why did this happen? And now I can't get to work, and now I'm gonna have this, and I have all these bills
Well,
piling up.
okay, so it's a constructive or productive and destructive stress, right? So
Mhm.
for example, if something happens and then I do stress because I would question this a lot, right? Then it is productive because it provides me with some kind of insight into, you know, me dealing with things. Why do I
Okay, I see what
deal
you're
with
saying.
it
Let
like
me
this?
clarify that because yeah, I definitely agree with you. So stress can motivate you to do well or it can break you, right? I'm talking about the stress that
I
like
like
where
the
you're stressed
pressure.
out and you're allowing it to, because yeah, I stress about things all the time and it definitely motivates me to get things done or
Mm.
find solutions. So I definitely agree with that. I was more talking about when you're stressed where it's affecting your health or when you're, becoming depressed or things like that when you allow it to. If you're stressing yourself and it, that elevates you to that next level thinking and problem solving, that yeah, I should have clarified that. Yeah, you're
Oh no,
definitely
no,
right.
that's what you're doing just now. That's
Yeah,
fine
yeah,
because I mean there's different type of pressure, there's different type of
yeah.
oppression
Right.
and so on, right? So I mean my parents, for example, you know, I could say oppressed me or they forced me to do something. But it was, as much as it felt bad, it was good for me, right? Because I wasn't capable of, you know, I don't know, going full force for myself because I was not at age, for example, right? But they could see that, I do need to move on with certain things because just how they did it maybe wasn't always, nice
Yeah.
because of who I
Well,
am. I need more gentle approach. But again, it is good because I do thank them for I am where I am today or stuff like that, right? So it's
yeah,
it's a good pressure, bad pressure, oppression, stress, and that's fine, talking about it, clarifying.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you don't have to
And
apologize.
well, I just wanted to clarify because I think stress is part of, the natural process, but I think that
Mm.
when you allow it to break you or allow it to
Oh, so it's the opposite
physically
of the
affect
comfort
you,
zone, right?
right? Yeah, I mean, because I'm stressed all the time, and I think there's that, word or meaning that we associate with words too, and what our connotation would be. So me saying stressed is, you know, if you're applying pressure, you're making it uncomfortable so that you have to change and move. That's fine. But when you allow yourself to become stressed, when you're now everything is a big deal and you're freaking out and you're, on running on empty because you're not sleeping and all those other things, that's more what I'm talking about. So having stress in your life that causes you to change or uncomfortable or, that's, reacting to
But
stress is
that's
great.
also learning, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
that kind of stress that isn't healthy for you, it's also
Yeah,
learning that, do I
without
want this
failure.
kind of stress? I do need that stress, but I'm going to turn it around and have it
I think it's
benefit
your
me.
reaction to it is more the appropriate way to look at
That's what
it.
we are learning, right? That's
Yeah,
why we have these therapies. So we
yeah.
change. So you do need pressure because obviously that's where the
Well, it's the same.
diamond is.
I was just
How is
gonna
it?
say,
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
go ahead. How it's.
the, you either, they say pressure either, breaks pipes or creates diamonds. So it depends on
Diamonds.
how you react to it. So I think that, that's the more what I was getting at. The stress being, do you allow it to consume you and ruin your life, or do you react to it and say, here's my opportunity to change? And using my own life as an example, many people have been following me since the beginning of this. I lost my job in August and all these different things. And it's kind of, looking back for me, it's stressed me to create this new life of, finding avenues of money to come in where I'm in charge. I'm creating my own hours and doing what I want to do and creating my own life instead of being essentially a servant to somebody else and being at their whim. And if they want to have me as their employee anymore, then they're just going to fire me because that's how they feel. And, I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't want to live in a society where, if you died, that your employer would just be the only thing they would care about is that they have to fill your position now. Like that's not the type of place I want to live anymore. And without that kind of being thrown into that stress, I might not have ever got out of that comfort zone. and we call it our comfort zone, even though we would
Yeah.
definitely be more comfortable on the other side of that stress if we, you know, react
It's
appropriately.
exactly what we are having today, right? We are pressured to make the choice.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
that's exactly what's happening. And I think it's happening on so many different levels and in so many different ways. But the thing that we have to remember is we have the choice, we have the ability to control our reactions. And you can either, like I said, you can burst from the stress and let it kill you from a heart attack or whatever it is, or you can react to it in the positive way and better
And
your life and
also
change
the
your situation.
5D is all about being a creator. So we can't, without this, learn how to be the creator,
Yeah.
because this is the only way to learn it, right? So we're kind of like kids, teenagers
Yeah. Yeah.
growing up as an adults into this 5D.
Well, I like the because they've, Raya said that to me before, how, humans are very childlike, in many
Hmm.
ways, and how, I mean, you can see it too if you just looked at the general, 99, or if you look at 100 people and what the majority of them are, or, it's not exactly, we're not the most, enlightened bunch. We're not the most, I don't know. If you look at humanity as a I don't know. I kind of look at us as like a disease ourselves in a lot of ways. I mean, and I think we have the opportunity to change. It's kind of like the bacteria in our gut. There's good bacteria and bad bacteria, but I think there's more bad right now. Not, and I don't think it's bad as in nefarious people with bad intentions. I think it's
Just overall, the
hypnotized
situation
people
isn't
being
okay.
controlled by a small
Um,
percentage of bad people with bad intentions, and a
it's
small percentage of awakened people who are trying to
yeah,
pull on. There's the small percentage on each side trying to pull on this big percentage of people in the middle.
yeah, no.
That's how I see it. And I'm hoping that our side is growing quickly, but some days I see it and other days I don't. But I do, I mean, just like one thing I like to do is just go on Facebook and read the comments when there's certain controversial or polarizing topics to kind of get the feel of where the world is, because it's not my friends list, it's not your friends list, it's just random people comment on a certain situation. And I have definitely seen a huge shift in that over this, even the past 6 months, more than anything, I would say have been really started to change a lot. But I mean, compared to where it was, yeah, a year ago, I mean, God, there was everybody defending everything that was, wrong. Like, and the useful idiot was just out of control a year ago. Like it was,
Yeah.
and now people are starting to kind of realize, I think.
To be honest, I was also not really sure because it really seemed to make sense at first.
Well, and I'm not just talking about the virus and stuff. I'm talking about the rioting that went on in the United States and how people were controlled and manipulated over these, uh, if you ask me, I don't even believe that half of those police murders that are on video are real. I think they're staged events that do exactly what they're supposed to do, and inciting riots and creating these idiots that don't know what they're doing and protesting for things that didn't even really happen. They don't even know why they're doing it. They're just out there to get a free TV or whatever. And so I really, I think those are all psyops. To be honest with you, I think that they're done and 100% intentional. Whether people actually die or not, I don't know. 100% wouldn't be surprised if they did actually execute people just to make it more real. I don't know. I don't know one way or another, but I am 99% sure that most of these things are manufactured just to create public outrage and distract from the media, whatever else that's really going on behind the scenes. Which last year, I mean, or 2020, especially looking back, and I knew it the whole time, but if you're an objective person, just sit, I'm talking about America here because I don't know how much other people pay attention to the elections, but let's take a look at what happened. They released a virus so that everybody had to stay home. Then they pushed the mail-in ballot thing. Then they burnt everybody or all these cities down and created all this fear and all this distraction from the fact that they were pushing these mail-in ballots and all of these things. And then the election has a guy who has the most votes in the history of our election, but yet can't even fill a parking lot with people who want to hear what he has to say. And every single, stadium in the country is chanting, "Fuck this guy." Does that seem legit, or does it seem like a whole staged event to get everybody to stay home and push the mail-in vote so that they could rig the election? You tell me.
The situation is interesting.
And
My
I know
goodness.
the real answer, by the way. So it's not a, I know what happened. I've been told. So it was a stolen election and they did it. Now, here's the part that I don't know for sure. And this is just a little conspiracy theory to, I have heard that Joe Biden is not even a living human being anymore, and that the person in the White House is actually somebody working for the White Hats as an actor to kind of show everybody what where we could have been going. And well, they were going there on purpose to show everybody, like it has to be shown to the world.
Wow.
And I don't know that that's 100% true or not. Take it for what you will, but it makes sense in a lot of ways if you think about it.
With yeah, with everything that is going on, sometimes why wouldn't I believe that, right?
Because that's I love the old Mark Twain quote too, is, are we being put on by idiots or are these genuine idiots? Or I know I screwed that quote up, but it's basically is, are these idiots who are, making us believe that they're smart people, or are they smart people who are making us believe that they're idiots? And I'm not really sure which is what. Well, I know
Um,
there's a combination of both, and I know how I understand how it works. So it's compartmentalization. You have, it's the same thing they did in the military. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, but you're on the same mission and you think you're doing, they tell you what you think you're doing. Just like those kids in that Montauk Project I was just telling you about. They told them
I
they were
just thought
saving the
about it.
world. They told them that they were, if they didn't help, that the world was going to end. So it's like, of course the kids are going to want to help, and go through that stuff. They think they're saving the world. So it's all just, and then in reality, who knows what they were actually doing. So, it's that people have good
I
intentions.
definitely have to get into that as well because it's very interesting. And I just had other things on my agenda, but yeah, slowly and surely.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's more the curiosity for me. I mean, conspiracy side is always interesting to learn about, but I'm more curious about what they actually achieved in those projects and how much of that I can achieve myself with, having the understanding. And the first step to gaining any ability, I think, is the awareness that it
It's
exists.
though you must be careful because yeah, they have different genetic markers, right?
Right, but I think from my understanding of things, one, we have a lot of DNA that is, you may have strands that are opened and mine are closed, or vice versa. So that's why you have certain abilities, but we can program those DNA to activate through our own intention. So we can change our DNA programming to allow us to do these certain things. But if we don't know that these certain things exist, then, that's half
Yeah.
the battle right there.
It,
So that's what
I
makes me
understand
curious.
it's always have the um half the path you have to like you have to meet 50-50. So 50% universe, 50% you.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's like kind of you have to know it exists, like the whole angel paradox of, how do you ask for help if you don't even know they exist? So, you have to be aware that telekinesis or, telepathic abilities, you have to be aware that they exist. And then the other half of that equation is you have to believe it. you
Believe
know?
it.
So there's a lot to overcome, especially with our conditioning, in that process. So
And therefore things have to happen slowly.
yeah.
I mean, depends, but yeah.
And that's another paradox in itself, because what is time but an illusion, and what is, that's why it
Mm,
drives me nuts whenever they say things are going to happen soon, because it's like, okay, well, what is soon? Because
what is
soon to you and soon to me, I believe, are two totally different. And I'm
exactly.
talking about the angels when they tell me, things will happen soon or this, and it's like, okay, well, soon to you could be like 1,000 years, and soon to me is like tomorrow.
So that they like to say that. It's funny
Oh,
because
they
my
love
higher
it.
self, when I was in this hypnosis, right, said the same thing, soon. And so the person that was like, asking these questions, right, I think she asked like what is soon, and so how soon or something, and it was like 7 months. And I kind of like, why 7 months? Why did I say 7 months? Right, so soon.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
soon is
and
their
it's,
favorite word.
yeah. Well, and I've caught on to a few things that I don't know if they do it just because they get a giggle out of it, or, it's kind of that letting us,
It's because it's not How are
Because it
you
does,
doing?
in a way, things take away our free will if they tell us, right? Because then we're into like self-fulfilling prophecies and those
That
sort of things
too, but
where,
I mean, it's probably this time problem, right? We perceive everything through time, and it's hard.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that their concept of time is different than ours. And everybody says time doesn't exist, but it does to a degree, right? We measure it based on these certain things that we've come up with. So there is a time that we abide by. And that's actually one thing that you know, it's interesting. Like I would be curious, if how everything happens now, there is no past, present, or there's no past or future, that sort of thing. But like for them, between sessions that I go and talk to them, what what is that progression of what path, it has to be some sort of passing of time to it, of the way we understand. I know everything is now, but that's where I try to, like, what happens in that passage of time for them? How do they quantify that? Or how is it, it'd be an interesting, because something has to happen. I know everything's now, but it's also that happened 10 minutes ago for us, or that happened last week for us. So in between those nows, what was happening for them? How does that time pass? Or I don't know, one of those paradoxes that makes your head spin a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good word to say, or
Yeah.
good expression. My head has been spinning too. Um, well, so after the weekend, this is the 12th, and then there's 21st as well, right?
Mhm.
They're like indicators. I'm not sure whether to believe in it or not, but
Yeah, I've heard different things. I've never channeled anything myself about, like, I've heard of this 3 days of darkness for a year at least, that it's coming, and I don't know if it's true or not. I know, um, yeah, I know I've been reading about it, and it's in several different ways of how it's going to happen or what it means, and different things. And some people have predicted that, like, on the 14th of this month, it's supposed to be the first indicator or something. And I don't know if it's supposed to happen soon, or if it's even going to happen at all. I don't know if it's one of those, fear spreading techniques that, the other side would use. I have no idea. So it's kind of, but I have kind of been, it seems like a lot of people kind of have a consensus that something big is going to happen shortly.
something has to.
Yeah. But I
Mm,
kind of get the feeling, my personal opinion, I don't know if you've paid attention to it all, but this Ghislaine Maxwell trial, I think that's going to be one of the, I think when they drop some of the names that are involved with, it's going to, I don't know what names they're going to drop first, but if they dropped a couple of names, it would be a massive awakening for the world.
I'm hopeless in that sense.
In what sense?
Like if we just talked about all these, people are still in their beliefs about the whole coronavirus thing. Do you think that this is going to open their eyes? I don't know. I'm not
Oh,
hopeless.
no. So from what I understand, I believe that there's like, I think they said like either 4 to 7 or 5 to 8% of the population that's just never gonna get it. They're never gonna wake up.
Mm,
And then each of these events or truths that come out, or however you want to say it, is going to
little
be
by
kind of a
little.
light switch moment for a mass amount of population. So yeah, it might not be everybody, but it'll be a lot more people than anything else to this point. Then the election stuff will probably come out, and then other stuff, where it's just too many things one after another that you kind of have to, pay attention. You're already seeing like a lot of these CEOs resigning, these people getting fired from different news stations, different governors being implicated. Like there's all kinds of stuff that's gonna, and I know most of the names on, if the lists that I've seen are true, I know most of the names, and so far the names that have been named have been on that list. So it's gonna, if people aren't ready, and the worst part is people think this is just about pedophilia. They don't even know the worst parts of all this, what they're really doing with those kids. Like that's, when people find out that stuff, that is going to really destroy a lot of people's perception of reality. I'm being serious, especially some of the people that you've looked up to or admired in the celebrity world. Like it's going to disgust a lot of people
And
when it
that's
comes
very
out.
interesting that this thing has to happen for me to like look differently at somebody. I looked differently at all of those that are on the list for
You've seen
much
it too.
smaller things that they've done a long time ago.
Hmm.
Like I
There's a
don't,
couple of names that disappointed me that I was,
yeah,
but for the most part, I was like, makes sense.
I don't know. I'm disillusioned in, like, when it comes to you know, this whole celebrity thing very long time,
Oh yeah. Well,
or
and I
about
think,
them,
and that's what I
disillusioned
talked
about them.
about with in one of the other podcasts I did with my friend. We did the super long one. Um, but how, and I don't necessarily think that celebrity status is a good thing for anybody, but like just for an example, I know he's dead, but like Mozart or Beethoven or somebody like that who is truly impressive, truly has an admirable skill set that is like, okay, this is something worthy to take note of, right? And what it's devolved into today, where people aren't even talented or don't even do anything, like they don't do anything except be famous. Like it doesn't even make sense. Like you're admiring people for absolutely no quality. And that's where it's just like I don't like I can appreciate somebody who does, a professional athlete, whether I like the sport or not, or like the person, I can appreciate the sacrifice and the dedication that it takes to be where they're at in that profession. But I mean, some of these singers or I put quotes on that, even like it's not even them doing it, it's a computer doing it, like they're not even, they have no talent or ability or skill or anything other than the fact that they have been placed into these positions to be famous and tell people what to do and get people to go along with to tweet out something, and then 8 million people say, oh yeah, I believe that too, and that's all they're there for, and people don't
It's
realize that.
disgusting.
Yeah, and a lot of these a lot of these celebrities and stuff are programmed individuals through these CIA programs, through these, Operation Mockingbird, that Project Montauk. There are these people that are programmed to say certain things, and they're celebrities simply for the fact that they were raised to be celebrities. They were raised to have this role so that they could control people. And people don't realize that stuff. People think, and this is, as with everything, there's no one size fits all. It does not mean every celebrity is like that. It's probably a very small percentage of them who are actually that, what I just said. What else it is it's you dangle someone's dream in front of them and you say, hey, we got to do this and you'll be famous. Now, hey, and it never starts off with the most awful things, right? It starts off with, I could, I draw my, I got my line in the sand, but it's not really that big a deal. I'll cross it for this. I got my part in a movie. Now I'm rich. Hey, if you want to do this, and you want to be like top A-list celebrity, now you just do this. Then they videotape it. And then they have you forever because they blackmail you. Now you do whatever the fuck you're told for the rest of your life, or they release the videos of the things that you did to these people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it works. And then there's people that have nothing to do with it. And then you see the celebrities that speak out against it, and then they get suicided. And, then there's signs. There's certain, when somebody has been killed in the act of pleasuring themselves and choking themselves at the same time, and there'll usually be a bow tie or something on the doorknob, it's a sign to people in that community that this guy was going to talk and now he's dead. They know what it means. It's not suicide. It's a sign. It's a warning. And that's how they keep a lot of this hush hush. They either kill people, or the people talk out about it and people think they're crazy, or they talk out about it and then they die and they say it was a suicide.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far, even before Marilyn Monroe, we had this, but she was one of the best examples.
Who?
Marilyn Monroe.
Oh yeah, she was gonna talk. She started talking about the UFO and the secret space program, and that's why they killed her, because JFK was telling her about it, and that's why they killed him too. Part of it.
We'll definitely continue. As I said, these interesting dates are coming. We'll see what happens. We'll have something else to talk about for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
and hopefully something happens, because I feel like all these dates keep coming up and all these predictions and all these things.
or didn't expect anything, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't know that things don't happen. Like what's hard about all this too, is I think sometimes things happen behind the scenes and we just are like, oh, nothing happened, and then stuff probably did, and so it just makes it, like I told you before, this kind of lull where it's like is this stuff happening? Are we still going here? Is it still,
It is actually, for sure it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out and if there's any, and the other part that people have to keep in mind with these future predictions is, well, like we were talking about before, there's all of these infinite number of timelines. Sometimes people tap into timelines that are alternate realities. Sometimes people tap into timelines that were going to happen based on certain decisions that were being made, but then we learned about it, so we made different decisions that changed that timeline. So there's all these things that happen with future predictions that we have to understand, that there is no predicting the future. You can get lucky, and happen to predict the right timeline, or these people tap into these right timelines or whatever, but us knowing which timeline we're going to head down is based on so many different things, including my personal decisions, which echo out into the collective's decisions, which echoes out into the collective frequency that we end up in, and that determines which timeline we end up in.
That's what we should talk about, like how to create a ripple effect that is for the benefit.
Well, we already have been, without even realizing it. Changing yourself, that's how you do it.
Oh, well, I thank you for that so much. Forever, really.
You change
Keep
yourself and then you
doing
change
the
the
good
world.
job, please.
Yeah. So I think that's the ripple effect that everybody needs to understand. That's how it works, is you change yourself and then other people see.
Well, I do need to embody it. I did write it down, so I do need to embody it. I mean, when you know
Everybody
something
does.
for
And
the
I'm not
longest
perfect. I'm not all this all the time. I can talk about it. I'm not always about it. I try, but we're all human too, at
time,
least
and
this
that's what
extent.
we should have one another.
Yeah. And it helps to, say it out loud. It helps to, sometimes when I'm saying things out loud and explaining it to you, it's clicking for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting it now. I'm registering my own lesson in my
Exactly.
own head.
Yeah.
So I think that that's important too. And, having humility is the biggest thing too, where we have to understand, and your ego is important too. I don't, they're both equally important, and they
Yeah.
need to be balanced, because if you have too much humility, then you're never going to achieve your full potential. And if you have too much ego, then you're never going to be humble enough to achieve your full potential. So
That's something I wanted to, say before, and we just kept going. But yeah, the ego is so important for sure.
yeah, and a lot of the spiritual world is, they think it's about destroying the ego, and this is what they mean by that. If there is any validity to that statement, if your ego is your identity, if you identify as your ego, I am this or I am that, and whatever it is that your ego makes you feel good, then yes, you need to smash your ego and understand that it's a part of you, and it makes up, half of your drive or whatever, and the other half should be, your humility. That's where I think the ego smashing, like, my ego was definitely smashed to a million bits whenever I did that heroic dose of mushrooms that we talked about before. So, but I still use my ego to better myself too. I use my ego to make sure that I exercise, or that I, reflect on things, or, push myself to practice more, whatever it is. Those different things, the ego is very beneficial for. It makes you better and strive to be better. But if you let the ego become you and become out of control and control who you are, and you identify as those things, that's when the ego is bad. So it's all about balance, just like everything.
So we can end with, I was thinking, what is it? What kind of world do we want to live in? That can be a title.
What kind of world do we want to live in? Uh, I think
Well,
if I had to boil it down to one word, it would be understanding, because we
yes,
don't have to tolerate, we don't have to, or, we don't
understand.
have to agree, we don't have to, but if we all understand what we're here to do, and understand that your mission is different than my mission, is different than their mission, is different than their mission, and understand how all those things play together at the same time, understanding that we're the creator fractaled into an infinite number of pieces to experience, creation in all its different ways. If we all understood that, there would be no point in conflict. Well, I guess there still would be. I don't know. And see, that's one of those conundrums too, because, as much as we say love and light and we don't want to kill stuff and all those other things, like, that's part of it. That's all part of this war,
Yeah.
greed, all of the negative things that we think of. It's, if without all of those things, there would be no school, there would be no lessons. So they're all equally as important as the love and the light and all those other things. So we have to understand that. So that's why I would say understanding is the biggest, there has to be war. Otherwise you don't appreciate how good it is not to have war. So there had to be the Holocaust for us to appreciate not having the Holocaust. There's all of these evil, dark things that had to happen for us to be able to see the contrast. And, you can't appreciate the sun without the night. So I think we need to keep that in mind and just be understanding of that's what this is. It's this evolutionary playground that we're here to learn all these different lessons, good, bad, or indifferent. And
Depends, yes. Because in the end, this is why is the earth changing, because it went too far. Didn't have to happen. Probably it wasn't even supposed to happen, right? Let's say this
no, I
Holocaust.
think everything happened exactly the way it's supposed to. I think with the
Actually, maybe, I don't know, but
well, just what I'm getting at is, nothing is kind of, I don't think that there was ever like, here's where we want to be, here's where we are, how do we get there I think it's like, here are the parameters. You have death for sure. Whatever it is, let's see where it goes. And in that process, there is the attempt to keep things somewhat balanced. And I think that's all that it really is an attempt to balance. It's not
so
a
now we
elimination
also
of,
can't be some sort of like, bubbleheads thinking that everything is going to be great. No, things are going to still be
right,
bad.
right.
And it's going to take some time to balance it. It
Well,
is
and
not
here's
balanced, right?
the two
So
factors that I think are important. The light doesn't want to intervene because they obey by the rules, right? They want things to unfold as they do. The left, or not the left, the dark, they don't care, right? They don't care about the rules, so they will intervene. So that's why their side seems like it's winning, because they don't have any regard for the rules. The light side is allowing things to unfold the way they're supposed to, because they're not supposed to interfere and they abide by the rules. So you can kind of see the conundrum that has been, but that's why this quarantine has been placed to, I guess, try to limit some of that negative outside influence to allow
mhm.
things to kind of progress. Because like I've said before, from what I've channeled, the average, neutral human would generally gravitate towards the light without any outside interference. So makes the dark have to work extra hard to make sure that they have those people on their side still. So it kind of makes sense, especially looking at it from that type of perspective.
We'll see. I mean, I'm sure we all will have our own encounters and experiences,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. So yes, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah. You as well. And everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. All right. See you guys later.